Ken Milne here at CAEP19, and as you can see, we have lobsters. Yesterday, it was a talk between two ferns, and we were short lobsters, when the whole theme was going to be a talk between two lobsters. So we have lobster number 1 and lobster number 2, and I'll put lobster number 3 down. So right now, we are going to be interviewing Heather Moyse. She was our plenary speaker this morning, and we were just talking about this off camera. She hit it out of the park. Heather, you were fantastic. So for those of you who could not attend, I wanted to put together a little 5-minute segment to get a taste of what they missed. So Heather, what was the theme? What was the message from your plenary session this morning?
I don't know. I'd like to hear what you took away from it. Were you paying attention, or?
I laughed, I cried, I grew as a person. And actually, I did tell her, again, off camera, because I was getting a little misty, that when she was talking about her athletic endeavors, it triggered a bit of stuff that I went through as an athlete. But this isn't about me, it's about you. So I will throw you the question.
Okay.
You talked about success after success after success, and so I was passing notes in class to the other people at the event, and I said, oh my God, she succeeds at everything. And I know that that is the perception people have when they see 2 gold medal Olympics athletes, right? But it's not about success every single time.
No.
They don't see the failure, then success. And it's a series of failures to get to the success. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit is, while you're talking about all these successes, what did it take? How many failures? What did that teach you? How did you get through that?
I think that the question is not so much about failures. Well, it shouldn't be so much failures. It should be more about, the sacrifices. So a lot of people don't realize that when you're setting goals for yourselves, instead of just setting goals for something you really want, you have to evaluate what you're actually willing to sacrifice in order to get that. So, everybody wants to be an Olympic champion. Everyone wants to be a millionaire or a CEO in some corner of a, 40-story building. Everyone wants to be, all of these really great things. Everyone wants to have a great sex life. Everyone wants to, all these phenomenal things, but what are you willing to do to get there? And when you evaluate that stuff, that's when you figure out what is worth the effort and what is not. And for some people, they want a great sex life, but they're not willing to have that awkward conversation to get there. For some people who want to be Olympic champions, yeah, everybody wants to be an Olympic champion, but are you willing to put your body through the gruels of training every single day, and also the sacrifice of missing out on family events and birthdays and not necessarily being where you want to be at certain times. I missed one of my best friend's wedding because it was the testing going into that Olympic season, going into Vancouver. So it's kind of making a lot of choices along the way that you have to evaluate and figure out what you're not going to regret in hindsight in heading there. And so a lot of it's not always about failure. It's about sacrifice, and figuring out what's worth it.
So I'm comfortable rephrasing that as sacrifice, because putting a dichotomy as success and failure, because there is a spectrum between the two, and it's not necessarily you failed, you sacrificed something, you made a choice. It was a risk-benefit. If we're going to talk medicine, it's sort of a risk-benefit analysis. Am I willing to give up this? Am I willing to accept this sacrifice? Am I willing to miss the wedding to train or to meet certain other obligations? And athletes have to go through this, but physicians have to go through this. I know medical students and residents who go through this. I know practicing physicians. How many birthdays have you missed? How many holidays have you missed because you've been there taking care of someone else? So I think there's a lot of crossover between excelling in athletics and you wanting to be the best you can be, and also excelling at being a physician. And I don't mean being the best physician, I mean providing the best patient care.
Yeah, well, the qualities it takes to be successful as an athlete are the same qualities it takes to be successful in any occupation or industry. And I'm not referring to the specific skills obviously required to execute the job, but I'm talking about the characteristics and the traits like courage, creativity, perspective, perseverance, all those things that it takes in order to overcome challenges that present themselves along the way, or dealing and managing with change and all of those different things. And those are the things that are required to become successful in what you want to do, but everything does require sacrifice in order to get there. And I mean, some people don't consider it sacrifice. Some people might just consider it a choice.
A choice.
I'm choosing this over this. I'm choosing to...
You value that over this, and you're making value choices.
I'm choosing to sleep under my desk and not have any weekends for 2 years because I want to become a CEO. Like, you know, a financial investments and CEO, like, people make their choices in figuring out what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And sometimes it's not quitting when you just realize that it's a choice, that some people do want to change direction and change paths. And it's not quitting or giving up if you actually acknowledge the fact that the sacrifices aren't necessarily worth the rewards or the path that you're going on. And then it's more about self-awareness and reevaluation.
So we buried the lead a bit because she won 2 gold medals, both in bobsledding, but 2 separate Olympics. But that wasn't enough. You had to make it in the Olympics in rugby and also rugby.
Yes, I'm in the World Rugby Hall of Fame.
Oh, the Hall.
Not the Olympics.
The Hall of Fame. My fault. The Olympics was the other B sport, right? That was biking, right? I'm just happy we're not talking about sex anymore, quite honestly, because I was turning bright red, and I'm just like, okay.
I was just reflecting off your jacket.
Oh yes, it is bright red. Just it's that's everybody knows I turn bright red very easily. So, but biking.
I have done a few sports. Yeah.
A few sports.
Yeah.
And you know, I think, how did you come to doing bobsledding coming out of PEI? Because I'm thinking, did they set up the thing on the Anne of Green Gables house? Was it just a pile of potatoes? I mean, where do you train for bobsledding in PEI?
I was recruited because I'm a really good tobogganer.
Okay, that was it. Yep. Okay, so for tobogganing, that was transferable skill.
They just go to the hill and
Okay.
just see who the best tobogganers are.
Okay, and I can see where this conversation is going, so I'm just going to take it a step. I'm going to break all the walls here. The next step is, okay, so after all of that, you know, Olympic success and Hall of Fame, the next thing she had to accomplish was climb a mountain in Antarctica. Okay, so you're going from PEI to Antarctica to climb a mountain. Why did you climb a mountain in Antarctica?
I climbed it. The reason.
See how much more relaxed I am now?
Yeah.
Tell me about Antarctica.
Yeah. A gentleman called me and told me about this expedition that was happening with mostly kind of corporate civilian people, but also with a handful of soldiers that were going to try and attempt to climb the highest summit in Antarctica. And the whole point of it was to raise awareness for post-traumatic stress disorder and also to raise money for our Canadian war veterans to transition back to civilian life.
So it was for war veterans and PTSD?
Yes. Yeah.
Why? Is it just, did you have some personal experience, or was it just because that's the type of person you are, that when somebody reaches out and says, can you help us with this area? Can you give us some leadership in this?
Well,
you say yes.
I wish I could say that that's how it went down right away, but when this gentleman called me, he said he had met me at a Rugby Canada fundraiser. And
so it wasn't at the Hall of Fame?
No, it wasn't.
If you're going to throw me off, I'm going to throw you off.
That's fine, I can handle it. He basically said that when he met me, he just, we enjoyed talking together, and that he and his family are huge supporters of our Canadian rugby team, but they're also supporters of our Canadian war veterans, or Canadian military, Canadian Armed Forces. And so he told me about this track, and then he said, and it's a fundraiser, and so I automatically was assuming he was going to be asking me for an item to donate, like a signed Olympic item for a donation.
Can I take the medal up the hill,
yeah,
or something like that?
Or can I sign a jacket to put on an auction or something,
yeah.
And so...
Like wearing a sparkling sequence jacket and then
something
auction
like
it off
yeah, exactly.
at CAEP.
Exactly
yeah,
like that, yeah. And so that's what I was assuming. And so all of a sudden he said, and I'd like you to do the trek. And I was like, okay. And he said...
Like the boat ride part or the climbing the mountain part?
And then he said, it's $50,000. And I was like, I'm a bobsledder, right? Like that's, I'm a bobsledder.
Like it's not the women's Olympic hockey team.
No, exactly.
That was a shout out to our Olympic.
Shout out. No, but he said he wanted to sponsor my track because he believed so much in the cause, but he also believed that that I would be a great asset to the track itself, and also that he thought that it would help raise profile for what the cause stood and give more exposure publicly for what they were doing. And so I said, okay, well, I'd like I'll get back to you in a couple days. And then
I speak fluent keynote speakers, which means no, usually.
Yeah, well, I had to.
Does that because you had to think about it, process it, because that's a lot. That's a big ask.
It is a big
right?
ask.
Going to the bottom of the world to climb the highest mountain at the bottom of the world.
See, and I wasn't so much. It wasn't about that.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of like the commitment would have been a week in August and then 3 weeks in January. And for me, as a professional speaker, there might be a month where I don't have any gigs, but there might be a month where that is my complete income within that week or that 2 weeks. And so it was really, I was kind of thinking about it in terms of business, and can I afford to take that time away when it's not like I'm on a salary where I can just ask for time off. As self-employed, you know, it was a kind of more of a logistical question. Not to mention the fact that I'm not a walker. I actually hate walking, and I hate the cold. Despite me being a 2-time Olympic gold medalist in bobsledding,
In the Winter Olympics.
wearing next to nothing in the Winter Olympics,
Yeah, spandex.
I actually don't do very well in the cold. So it was just a very interesting concept. And then I was very embarrassed with myself. I was actually mortified that it took me any time at all to even think about it, because the only reason I am able to live the life I choose to live is because these servicemen and women have chosen to put their lives on the line for me to be able to do that. And so I was actually very embarrassed that it even took me a day to get back to this person. And then the whole idea about cold and walking for, like on summit day, it was just under 11 hours we were trekking. And so just the idea of that was mortifying. But I talk to people all the time about stepping outside of their comfort zone in order to discover what they're truly capable of. And minus 40 degrees is definitely out of my comfort zone. And so I said, I talk about this all the time, so I'm gonna literally walk the walk instead of just, you know, talking about it. And it just, it to me, it was a way to tap into that instead of just it being directly sports related with that. And it was something else. And I was like, yeah, I really want to do with this. I believe in what this is about. And it was one of the best things I've ever done. Like,
I love the photo. The photo, you have to see the photo. It's like Lord of the Rings Gandalf, right? Photo with all the frost and stuff like that. It was an epic photo that you had.
I give Gandalf a run for his money.
No, it was an epic photo. Now, clearly you had better footwear while you were doing that trek along Antarctica.
Better than?
I don't know, keynote speaking.
Better
Those,
than?
yes. People were making fun of my socks and sandals, so we sort of had to. I'm the tacky one, and clearly.
I was worried about clashing with his microphone and his jacket. But
Yeah, well, we're not sure if that's going to pick up anyways.
I did have legit footwear in Antarctica.
Yeah, no, be prepared. So some of the other stuff that I observed during the talk and talking to people after the talk was that, the transferable skills of, getting up early in the morning, pushing yourself, getting outside of your comfort, and then that practice so that you can perform at your peak when it's required. And we're practicing emergency medicine, and, we don't want to make mistakes. And so people don't see all the practice that comes into it, the years of experience and the years of training. And again, when we tune in and see these Olympic athletes, we go, look at what great shape they're in, look at how driven they are, look at how focused they are. But that just doesn't happen. That takes perseverance. And you have to have #no regrets.
Yeah, no regrets. It was kind of a philosophy I developed along the way, like no regrets equals no excuses. And it was, I just knew I wanted to be able to stand at the starting line at the top of the bobsled track and just know that be able to know that I had done everything I could to be the best that I could be at that moment. And I mean, that just meant that whatever the result was, because there's so many things that are out of your control.
On that day.
On that day, it could be anything, and you're competing against other people. There are other factors involved that you can't control. I can't control what other teams had for breakfast in the morning, or what equipment they have access to, or what trainers they're able to use. Like, there's so many things that are out of your control, so you can only control you. And if you at least do everything that you can, so you know that there's nothing more you could have done, and with regardless of whatever result, you have no regrets.
And so people know what she did was she pushed mid-sized cars through parking lots. She sat in big garbage bins filled with water was it recovery?
Yeah, recovery.
And then when when the gym was closed, she went out to a playground and did her upper body workout just to do it, to make sure that she had left nothing undone.
I just have to say, I sat in garbage bins full of water because there was no bathtub.
No, but it was absolutely, you know, like another epic picture showing what do you have to do, and it's a bit of the emergency medicine philosophy of MacGyvering things.
Yeah.
And so when you don't have the right tool to accomplish what you need to do in the best interest of the patient, you just make it happen. You MacGyver it. And when you didn't have access to the proper tub to get prepared for your competition, you know, the team around you rallied around you and put you in this sanitized garbage.
Recycling bin.
Recycling bin. But again, it was another great story to show, you know, people see all the, you know, I'm wearing my Maple Leaf mittens, I'm wearing my Maple Leaf hat, I'm wearing my Canadian gear, but they don't see all the stuff that goes into it to make those things happen.
No, and even if the results don't turn out as you want them to, like even in the emergency room, if something is not, if you're treating someone and it doesn't turn out to go as well as you planned,
people die.
Exactly.
Despite you doing everything you can that was appropriate to do in a caring, compassionate manner.
But that's the key, is making sure that even though you may need to be a little creative or think outside the box and try and solve this problem, as long as you do everything that you can legally and within your power to do, then you can leave there at least knowing that you did absolutely everything you could to be the best that you could be for that patient at that moment. And then there are so many things that are out of our control, so many, you know, factors that come into play that we have obviously they're out of our control. We have no control over them. So.
Speaking of no control, I'm supposed to be limiting this to 5 minutes, and that's supposed to be the control that I have on this, but you are very engaging, you're very warm. I watched you sign books for like 3 or 4 hours, signing books, and every single person, I almost said patient, because this is what we do in the emergency department, and I think it's what we should do, and it's exhausting by the end of the shift, and I'm sure you're exhausted, so I really appreciate you doing this. But every single person that came up to you got 100% of your attention. You looked at them, you smiled at them, and you made them feel important. And that's what we should be doing in the emergency department. Every single patient who comes in, I don't care what they're there for, it's important to them. And we need to smile at them, engage them, and say, how can I help you? What can I do? And sometimes that will be helping them with a death, right? You know, they will die despite us doing our best. And sometimes that might just be getting a warm blanket and a turkey sandwich, and everything in between.
It's interesting because in my book and on stage, I talk about, just a little bit on stage, I talk about the ripple effect of action. And that smile you said, even if it is just a smile, or just the fact that they know they're being taken seriously, could be the make or break for them. It may have nothing to do with the actual treatment and everything to do with just
establish that in the first few
how
seconds,
you have
right?
treated that person.
The first few seconds.
And the thing is, it's not just how you impact that person, but it's then how that person is then able to impact other people because of something you were doing. So it's the ripple effect. You have no idea what those actions can be, good or bad actions, that will have ripple effects that go off into the world and change lives.
So just treat everybody nice. At least that's my policy. And smile. Smile and treat everybody nice. And in that first 5 seconds, you can create a really wonderful rapport as opposed to the eye roll.
Well, there is a surgeon who completely changed my life.
Okay.
And
I see we're going outside the 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think we're
There
past the 5
are no
minutes.
limits. There are no limits.
This will just be brief. But when I was in grade 7, I can confidently say that I am doing what I'm doing now because of this surgeon. Mm-hmm. And this surgeon removed a tumor the size of a small grapefruit from my dad's brain. And this was when I was in grade 7, and it was in Chicago because nobody in Canada would touch it. Nobody in Canada would do it. And my dad has been such a strong influence, even just in the way that I think about things and perspective and decision making and like pros and cons, just helping me through a lot of decisions I've made throughout my life and the perspective of the impact I could make based on some of the choices I've had. And without him, I would not be where I am today. And without that surgeon, my dad would not be here. So when you talk about that kind of ripple effect, that surgeon probably had zero idea of what I was doing in the world. And in my book, I actually made a statement that it was my goal by the end of 2018 to actually meet him and thank him in person. And so last December, start of December, I think it was November, December, we took a family trip down. We tracked him down and we went and we met him, and it was absolutely incredible. And so his granddaughter also, his daughter and his granddaughter also flew to Boston to meet us. And the granddaughter was just so enthralled, and we hung out together and we had lunch together and all of that stuff. And then this doctor's wife, Dr. Al-Mefdi's wife, thanked me for being such a great role model to their granddaughter. And I said, well, indirectly, that's because of your husband. Like, it's crazy that it just came full circle, but you have no idea the impact you can make on someone and as an emergency doctor, most ER doctors aren't going to see the impact that they make on patients' lives, on the lives of the families, on how they, just based on how they've been treated or how they've, gone outside the box and done something for someone. And so,
I'm feeling seriously, it's just so nice. And I learned this from Brian Goldman about kindness, right? And so if you're going to have an impact, you have a choice of what impact. You can't control all these other things. You talked about all these external things. The only locus of control we have is how we carry ourselves and how we interact. And so I learned from Brian Goldman to do it with kindness. And that kindness can have those ripple effects, and you can have that positive impact. And watching those people line up and talk to you and engage with you and tell them little stories with you about what they're how you connected with them. And those are the ripples that'll be felt beyond CAEP19 for sure because of that. There's just one last thing I wanted to talk about. and because
uncross my pitch.
Okay, yes. And because of the talk about your experience with your father and the surgeon and stuff like that, mentoring. And so when I was tweeting, I reached out to some people and I said, if there's one question, so Samina, this one's for you. If there was one question I could ask Heather, what would it be? And she said, could you ask her about the importance of mentorship? Because the talk that you gave was wonderful, of course, and I already said you hit it out of the park. But the part that she liked the most is when you went back and started training again, not for yourself, not for your own accomplishments, but you were mentoring and you were doing it for someone else. And that's the part that touched her the most. So could you talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship?
Yeah, I think that obviously people are going to see different importance of it, whether they value that or not, but I think it's truly important. I think it's not only helping, I don't think mentorship only helps the mentee.
Oh gosh, no.
I think a lot of times it is, I don't want to say selfish, but there is so much received reciprocally that it is a win-win for everyone. I think that it's not only a way for us as mentors to kind of re-ground ourselves and kind of, plant ourselves back to a position where we were at one time. Like we were there.
We were all
Every
here.
single person was a rookie in whatever they were doing, no matter how famous they are, no matter what board of directors they sit on, no matter what. Every single person started off as a rookie. And some people feel that, well, I got here on my own. Well, nobody really got anywhere on their own. Some may have had more mentorship than others, but I think it's truly important to be able to give back, and not just for that person, like I said, but also to keep yourself grounded, to remind yourself where you came from.
Yeah, and if you're in a position of leadership, if you are an attending physician, it's one of the most rewarding things you can do. And I can speak from personal experience. I enjoy having medical students and residents on shift. I'm a better clinician, I'm a better physician, I'm a better person when I have students around me and we can talk about cases and provide great care to patients. So, Samina, I did ask the question for you. Thank you very much. I know you're exhausted. It's been a long day. You've been engaging with a lot of people. But you can follow Heather Moyse on Twitter. And I'm getting some signals from the boss. Yes? No, you're not giving me any signals?
She's waiting to press the stop
button. Oh, she's
button.
waiting to press the stop button. Have we gone over 5 minutes? Oh, you don't know. I think we've gone over. But you know what? It's gone by like this for me. Because you were fantastic.
too.
You were fantastic. Can they buy this book anywhere? Is it just online? How do they get it?
Yeah, well, if they're still around, anytime I'm around, I would be happy to sell it and personalize it for you. If you're unable to get it with me in person, just on my website, heathermoyse.com. If you order it on Amazon, you could do that too. But if you order from my website, someone will contact you, and they'll contact you to see if you want me to personalize it to someone. So if it's for someone who's either going through a hard time, or someone who's transitioning to something exciting but needs a little boost, or if it's someone who you just think, you see the potential in them that they may not see in themselves, then it might be a good read, and I would love to personalize it for them. So just through my website, heathermoyse.com.
Yeah, so we're doing this on Monday. You're going to be here Tuesday, signing more books. So if you'd like to come by and get a personalized copy from Heather, please come by the CAEP booth and she will sign a copy for you. Otherwise, go online and do it. But this is Ken Milne for CAEP19, talking officially now between two lobsters. Thank you very much.
Thank you.